Good evening, everyone, all the Jacksonville community. We represent Taja. We're celebrating 18 years, but I just wanted to make sure not just our Telugu members, we also wanted to make this available for the entire Jacksonville community to make use of this. And this is the first slide I did, I would say, a couple of months ago, before even I took on my president term started here for Taja. And the first line I put on my first slide is, you can see up there, opening doors for the young generation of creators. That's where I started, and that's where I wanted to, help our youth committee. I know, being an entrepreneur myself, having events like this today would help them. We all gone through all the, failures and successes and the mistakes that we have done along the way, but we don't want everyone, to, again, going through that route may help some learn from them, but it's always good to learn those mistakes and failures, and successes also, so that you don't have to reinvent everything. So with that, this is our event today, Taja Entrepreneurs Workshop, and I wanted to make sure, welcome our speakers here, Raghu Mishra, Shivani Hanchate, and Sharad Korabi, for immediately accepting when I, spoke to them and shared this idea with them. And for the first time ever from Taja, we are doing this Taja Entrepreneurs Workshop, mainly to inspire, educate, and motivate the community members and also the youth. And we wanted to celebrate, and I don't know how many people know about World Entrepreneurs Day, and it is yesterday, August 21st. And we are celebrating World Entrepreneurs Day, and we wanted to learn from our entrepreneurs' success and failures. And also, like I said, learning from the mistakes of others is by far the easiest way to prevent mistakes in your own life. And this is not just one workshop. We'll be doing a series of these workshops, and you'll also have an opportunity next year for the entrepreneurs, World Entrepreneurs Day celebration with Taja Entrepreneurs Workshop, where you'll have an opportunity to pitch your idea and, business plan to panel of judges to win prizes, and also receive guidance from entrepreneurs. And again, I wanted to heartfelt thank you to all the Jacksonville entrepreneurs who came forward to be speakers for this workshop, and also wanted to bring up sponsors for this event for their continuous support. And thanks to all the organizations, community portals, and Facebook groups who spread the word out about this event. Coming back to the sponsors, we have Parag Shah, Mr. Parag Shah from Deerwood Jewelers. He has been a supporter for Taja over the years, and he accepted to be the sponsor for this event. And we also have Madhu Gabita, from our Telugu community, who also, sponsored for this event. Special mention about them. And I just wanted to see if we have any of these sponsors on our call, so that we would like to ask them to talk.
Yes, sir. Parag Shah has joined, and he's on Spotlight.
Yeah. Parag Shah, thanks again. Yeah, it's you. Go ahead. Yeah, you're on mute, Parag. You have to unmute. Sorry, you're still on mute. Just have to unmute. Yeah, there you go. I think you have unmute. You have done the unmute for a second, and you have, yeah.
Okay. Yes, so Mr. Paparao, thank you so much for the kind words. And it is always a pleasure to sponsor and support Taja. And we are always there for the community. And we appreciate all that you do for the community as well, Mr. Paparao and his team.
Thank you, Parag. And thanks again to Madhu Gabita Garu for sponsoring for this event as well. And I will give it over to Naveen.
Okay, to kick off the event, we will have one of our first youth committee volunteer to kick it off for the first segment. And here we have Aditi.
Thank you, Uncle. Hello, everyone. My name is Aditi Arjun, and I am one of the Taja Youth Committee volunteers for this year. I will be facilitating the first section of our webinar with our first speaker, Shivani Hanchate. Ms. Shivani used to be one of the Taja Youth Committee volunteers herself, and we are very happy to have her as one of our speakers. She is a current fourth-year medical student in UF. She founded MedRover, a program to help medical students gain perspectives in different specialties. She also co-founded National Indian Medical Students Association, which helps connect Indian medical students across the country. Now I will hand it over to Ms. Shivani to have her share her experiences.
Thank you, Aditi. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for the introduction. Like you said, I'm Shivani Hanchate. I'm currently a fourth-year medical student at UF. A little bit about me: before I came to UF, I graduated from the University of Miami. I majored in neuroscience with minors in chemistry and public health. And before that, I was in Jacksonville, and I graduated from Stanton. And I was also a part of Thaja, which I really enjoyed. I've really never considered myself to be an entrepreneur. When I was invited to speak to this, I was kind of surprised because I just have never used that term to describe myself. I've never wanted to start a business. I've never really been interested in money or stocks or revenue or any of those terms. My main goal for basically my entire life was to become a doctor, and that's what I'm studying to do, and I love what I'm doing. But when I started the MedRover and I started the National Indian Medical Students Association, some of my friends and people started using the term entrepreneur to describe me, kind of just like in passing. And then I kind of started to reflect on things that I had done or started or created throughout my life. And I kind of realized that I had been using the idea of entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial spirit throughout my entire life. So I think usually when you think of entrepreneurs, you think of people who start businesses, take risks. They are really kind of identified as business people. But I think a broader and more appropriate term or definition for entrepreneurship is just someone who has an idea, innovates, creates, and adds value to something. And that's where I think I might probably fit in more than, in the other definition of business people. So I just, came up with 3 tips when I was reflecting back on, starting MedRover and NIMSA and some of the other things that I've started. And I came up with these 3 tips, and I hope that they help you because when I reflect back on my life, I think those are the 3 main ideas that helped me get where I am today, and are basically the 3 ideas that I hope will encourage me to start and innovate more as I continue my journey. So number 1 would be finding an interest. So, how do you become this person that can innovate, create, or add value to something? You have to start with having interest in it. One of the most important things for me was that I had interest in many different things. I had interest in dance, I had interest in medicine, I had an interest in art, and it wasn't necessarily that I had this idea. Like I didn't just start off with an idea and become an entrepreneur. I started off with wasting my time watching YouTube videos of dances, and that gave me the idea to start other things, and starting that gave me the confidence I needed to just be able to start things wherever I was. When you are really interested in something and you spend a lot of time trying to understand it, you start to realize how it works, and you start to understand how it works. And that understanding is really critical to finding how you can contribute to that space. If you don't understand something fully, there's no way that you will be able to find out, oh, hey, I actually have a better way that this could work, or this, there's actually this big need in this, area or subject or topic, whatever it is that you're interested in, that isn't being met. So for me, one of the examples I have with dance is that I have always been really interested in dancing, and when I was in high school, I spent a lot of time watching Bollywood dances on YouTube, and I came across colleges who had come up with these amazing dance routines, and I was really enamored by it. And when I was in Stanton at the time, we have this huge show called Multi. I'm sure some of you have heard of it. And there was no Bollywood dance team. There was just like this Indian Bhangra and Ras dance team. Um, and I, watching all these YouTube videos was like, oh, well, we could definitely have Bollywood that is more appropriate. It shows more of the culture that we grew up with. Not everyone grows up doing Ras or Bhangra. Mostly all of us grow up listening to Bollywood, dancing to Bollywood, or Tollywood songs at the Ugadi festivals or Diwali festivals. So that's how I created, with a friend, the Bollywood dance team at Stanton. And I kind of used all of these things, all the time that I spent watching YouTube videos and watching these dances, used elements from those things to create the Bollywood dance team. And it's such a small thing that when I was doing it, I would have never used the word entrepreneur to describe what I was doing. But when I think back, I was filling a need, and I created something, and I added value to the multicultural group there at Stanton. And to be honest, I'm really proud whenever I see the Bollywood dance team still performing today. So I know many of you are still very young, and I include that example because it's, entrepreneurship doesn't have to mean that you created, there are kids that create amazing things in high school, and maybe you're one of them, but just finding a need and following your interest, you can create something, and that can be your first entrepreneurial endeavor without you even realizing it. So just do work that you care about, do things that interest you, and really get to understand, the whatever topics or arts or areas that you're interested in, and then you can begin to start to create ideas as, how do I get into the space? What are people missing here that I can contribute? So that's the first one, just find something that you're interested in. The second thing is to find a need. So even in high school, there was a need for more cultural organizations, groups that had more people. And you'll find, I think when I was in high school and even in college, I mistakenly thought that everything that could be done had already been done. There was no new club that I could make. It felt like there were hundreds of clubs that, people had already started. Like what new club could I possibly start? But once you get interested in something, you start, like I said, you start finding the need. And once you find the need, that's kind of where your time to shine is. So, and just to kind of go back, I just promise you that not everything has been done. I know I definitely thought that, and I wish someone had told me not everything has been done, and you need to think critically about what is there, what exists already, and what your strengths are and how you can contribute. And I promise you, if you think that way, you will find somewhere something that isn't done that you can create and add value to. So when I started medical school, for example, there wasn't an Indian Medical Students Association. There were medical students associations for like Hispanic students, for Black students. There was a multicultural students association, but there wasn't an Indian Medical Students Association. So me coming from college with all of my Indian friends and kind of participating in Diwali shows and pujas and dance teams, I really missed that when I came to medical school. And so that, one, I was interested in all of those things, and two, there was a need. There was no there was no platform for Indian medical students to connect with other Indian physicians or other Indian medical students. There was no platform to talk about what our experience is as medical students, what our experience is, as a person of color, as a person of someone from different culture, interacting with all of these different types of people in medicine. And, we as Indians are by no means the people that are discriminated the most against. Unfortunately, there are other people like our African American communities and Hispanic Latina communities that are discriminated against a lot. And I think right now there is so much more awareness that racism still exists. But even as an Indian student, I have experienced, just microaggressive comments, people asking me what caste I belong to, or just random things that people say that are inherently racist, and they shouldn't say. And so my friend and I were talking about this, and we realized that, hey, we're not the only students that are experiencing this, and we need to provide a space for other medical students to talk about this, and also a space for us to inform other people about the culture that we grew up with so that they don't say ignorant comments to us. So it was kind of both ways. So we just found this need and we were like, hey, let's start it. So we created the Indian Medical Students Association at our school first. And it was a big success. We actually don't have that many Indian medical students at UF, but we had so many people from all types of different cultures and backgrounds come, not only to learn or not only to talk about their experience in medicine with racism and discrimination and cultural competency, but also to come because they wanted to learn what it means to be Indian and the cultural things that go along with being Indian. Because I think in Jacksonville, we're very privileged. When you go to schools like Stanton and James Weldon, you are surrounded by diversity, and you learn to appreciate other people's cultures, but not everyone has that experience. Some people go to schools where there's very little diversity. So it was really cool to see that so many kids from different areas of life, different walks of life came to talk to us and learn about our culture. It was really special. Then we realized, well, hey, I'm sure other Indian medical students at other schools are experiencing the same thing where they don't have this platform. So we decided to create a national one. And we've had awesome interest, and we had all these ideas like, hey, when I was a high schooler, what would I have wanted from Indian medical students? I would have wanted an information seminar telling me, how do I get to medical school? So we tried to create that. We thought about, well, what would I have needed as a student in undergrad, as a pre-med Indian medical student? So we're creating mentorship right now. We're in the process of that. So, having the interest and finding a need just goes hand in hand. And once you find a need, just being passionate enough to follow it up and, being confident enough that your idea is good can really take you very far. That being said, we're still creating NIMSA, and it's still a work in progress. It's by no means this huge association that we've, all of our work is done. We're still working on it, but it's cool to see, just an idea that you had in conversation come out and become a reality. And lastly, I think the most important tip I have for you guys is that you need to surround yourself with inspiring people, and you can't be afraid to ask for help. So MedRover, which is the last thing that I'm going to talk about, is basically a website. It's a platform where people from different medical specialties, so medical students, residents, and attendings, write stories about how they chose their specialty or what their experience has been in that specialty. So that's just what MedRover is. And the reason I created it was because I did not know what I wanted to do. I still don't really know which medical specialty I want to do. And I really was interested in everything. So what started as me just approaching random physicians and residents, asking them, hey, why did you choose your specialty? Turned into a website that I created and now am running. And I guess it technically is a company that I'm running online. And it all really happened because I had encouraging people. One, I felt encouraged by my family and my friends who, when I first said, hey, I have this idea, I'm going through this problem, I have this idea that I think will help other kids who are going through, or other students going through this problem. The first kind of answer I got was, you can do it, go ahead and create the website, go for it. And I think that is really important. So having friends that will, and even family members that will not criticize you and just encourage you, can kind of give you the confidence to act upon the idea that you have. But, even further from that, I have never really been too afraid to ask for help. And I think that has taken me really far. And I think that's one of the most important things to have is, from Harry Potter, I think Dumbledore says something where the help will be given to people who ask for it. There's a quote in there. And I know it sounds like I didn't base my entire life off of that one quote, but there is a lot of wisdom in that. I have just emailed every doctor that I know, not even that I know, that I just found online. And I'm so, surprised and overwhelmed with the response that I've gotten. And it's not because my idea is like that unique or amazing. It's just because I asked. So I think it's really important to ask for help and recognize when you need it. And you'll be surprised with the amount of yeses that you will get. Like, you will definitely get some no's, but more importantly, you will get some yeses, and that will help you feel confident with your idea and, be able to build your idea into whatever vision you have for it. So I think this is great. I think that's awesome that Thaja is having this seminar on entrepreneurship. I definitely wish that I had this as a student. And I hope that my story kind of helps you, because like I said, I didn't start a business. I didn't start a company. Maybe I will when I'm older, but more importantly, I think I really held on to that entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm constantly trying to find ways to innovate, create, and add value to whatever it is that I'm part of. And I think that's the most important thing that you can take away from this, is that, wherever you are, you have ideas, you are special, you have your own experiences that make you an asset to wherever you are. So just feel empowered to use it, and just overall, just find an interest, find a need, and surround yourself with encouraging people, and you'll be able to do whatever you want in life. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shivani, for giving us tips on how to start entrepreneurial endeavors. That was a lot of information. Now let's open up the floor for any questions.
Hi, Shivani.
Hi.
That was awesome to hear you speak about your experiences.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What was the most difficult situation you faced throughout your entrepreneurship journey?
So I think that's a tough question, but I think overcoming, for me, I always second guess myself, and I think most people do. I think the ideas, the thoughts of is my idea good enough? Will anybody care? Will anybody be willing to help me? Are strong thoughts that really discourage people from following up on really awesome ideas. I think for me, the biggest challenge was overcoming that and having confidence in myself and believing the people around me when they said, you can do it. I think your idea is good, really believing them, and, not listening to the haters is kind of, I think the hardest thing to do is don't listen to the people that are criticizing you, but listen to the people that are encouraging you. That being said, you should always take advice, but advice is different from criticism. So I guess my main point is have confidence in yourself. You have gone through things that other people haven't gone through. You've seen the world in a different way. And I really believe that we're all here for a reason. So if you have an idea and you think it's going to change and add value to wherever you are, then have the confidence to follow through with it, and don't listen to anybody on the way that tells you that, oh, this is not good, or you're not good enough, any of those things.
Thank you, Shivani.
Yeah, no problem.
And a quick tip to the audience. Shivani has to leave after her speech. So if you have any questions, now is the time. Shweta Garu, anything from the chat or Facebook?
Nothing so far, Naveen Garu.
Thank you.
That's okay if no one has questions, but if you do, I'm here. And you can I'm pretty sure I'm the only Shivani and Chate in Jacksonville, so it won't be hard to find me. If you have any questions, you can always reach out via Facebook or email. I'm always
I
there.
have a quick question. This is Raghu here. So how many members do you have in the organization now?
In NIMSA, in the National Indian Medical Students Association, we have 28 schools represented right now. And we're working on partnering with some other organizations to get more.
Very cool.
Thank you, Ms. Shivani. This concludes this segment of the webinar. Now I will pass it on to Sanjana Kudumula.
Thank you, Aditi. That was a great presentation from Ms. Shivani. Hi, I'm Sanjana Kudumula, and our next speaker is going to be Mr. Raghu Mishra. He is the founder and CEO of Wired to Perform, which is a proactive human capital performance management. He is also an active investor and mentor for many entrepreneurs. We are really glad that he agreed to be in our panel for this event. Now I'll hand it over to Mr. Raghu Mishra for his presentation.
Hi everyone. Thanks, Paparao and everybody else for inviting me to impart the little wisdom, primarily like Paparao and everybody said before me. It's all about learning from everybody else's mistakes. Mistakes will be made, so what I'm here is to share some of the mistakes I've done, I've seen other people do, and hopefully some lessons that will help you in your entrepreneur journey. A little about myself. I'm a serial entrepreneur originally from India in Jacksonville since '98. Started a bunch of companies. I'm kind of considered a classic serial entrepreneur, which means somebody who has had multiple failures in life. So that's one very important aspect that every entrepreneur should remember, that failures will happen, and failures will happen at the highest level possible, at NASA, at Steinmart level, at JCPenney, whatever be the case. There'll be plenty of failures, irrespective of how good the intentions are, how good the brain power is, how much money you spend on the initiative. So don't get disheartened with anything, any failure, but the whole idea is have fun through the journey. So I created, a simple list of top 10 lessons of entrepreneurship that I'd like to share. So here, the first one is, first lesson is, everybody, in my view, should dream big. It's okay to start small, but the bigger the dream, the higher the impact and more fulfilling the whole exercise is going to be. Steve Jobs once said, people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who actually do. That is what I thoroughly believe in. A lot of people have laughed me straight at my face, listening to the ideas I have. But, that to me, every time that happened, I kind of felt even more motivated to try and prove the other people wrong. There's an industry term called BHAG, which is called Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal, which is a long-term goal that changes the very nature of the businesses or the industry's existence. The second one is, bring your passion, not the emotion, to whatever your idea is. Like Shivani mentioned, find what you're passionate about. In her case, it was the art and the dance that got her through the starting the clubs that she's done at Stanton. So to me, that's the thing. So you need to find whatever you're passionate about and go on with it, and never try to emotionally get too connected to whatever the product is, because over time that's going to change. And it's very important to understand why you're doing whatever you're doing. You know, the answer is what will keep you and put the guardrails when necessary. There will be, like I mentioned, there'll be a lot of disappointing days. And what is very important is the moment you start remembering yourself as to why you started this particular initiative, whatever that is, it'll actually bring you back and get you motivated to continue the journey, because you'll see, I'll actually show you a slide next, which actually tells you the roller coaster ride that we'll all be embarking on when you start the thing. And a lot of people I spoke to, they were hesitant to, or they felt ashamed to say, Raghu, when I asked this question, why do you want to do this? They were ashamed to say they are trying to do this for money. That is, to me, that is perfectly fine. And to me, if the purpose is to make money, it is a lot easier. That means you have opened yourself much wider. You can lay a much wider net to figure out what are easier ways to reach whatever your goal is, in this case, to make money for whatever reason. So never be, like I keep saying, every answer is a good answer. There are a lot of students in the audience today. So a lot of what I tell you, I'm glad not many parents are listening to me. There are a lot of things, in this case, the entire student life, what we are taught when we are going through the education phase will start looking very irrelevant when you actually leave the education spectrum and join the entrepreneur journey. So this is one of those, when you were a student, especially an Indian student, we were told never to fail. And if anything, if we get anything less than 90-95%, we were looked down upon, right? So to me, it is perfectly okay to fail. Some of the items that Shivani also covered in her journey. This is one important aspect that you all should look at and pay attention to the graphic on the right side. There'll be plenty of things. You'll see less successes, but more of the other things, which is the difficulties, the mistakes, the obstacles, and the failures through the journey. Okay, but the important aspect that you need to focus on is learn and understand that you committed a mistake, learn from it, adapt, and move to the next step of how to go about fixing the issue or the obstacle. And another very important line is, don't let perfect become enemy of the good. So there is nothing in my world, there is nothing called perfection. As I come from a software technology background, so there is a reason there are versions in a product. So that's, nobody is waiting for the perfect product to get rolled out. Release whatever you consider is a good usable product or a service, and keep refining it over time. And one of the other major aspect is, you should become self-aware. It is again one of the aspects that Shivani covered. This is very important for everybody to understand. There is no perfect entrepreneur. Everybody has come to life with their own set of strengths, struggles, and performance keys as to what motivates you, how to make you perform better. These are little 5 little things. Generally, entrepreneurs are considered people who take risks. And to me, taking risk is one piece, but to me, the addition to taking risk is they are okay with failures. If you are not okay with failures, you'll start fretting at the first failure that you can get. So you should actually embrace failure. That goes back to what we call the risk tolerance levels to be very high. Your desire to build something, in Shivani case, desire to build a club in Stanton, You should think differently from others. Again, very important aspect. You should always assume there is better way of doing whatever that is. Even if there is an existing product, you really like it, there is always a better way of doing whatever that solution that exists in the market. And don't be afraid to say, oh, the product already exists. In the technology world, especially, there's nothing called, you have to be the first to be the biggest. There are numerous examples. Facebook was not the first social media site. Google was not the first search engine. iPhone was not the first smartphone. Or in the mobile messaging platform, iPhone was not the first one. It was BlackBerry, and there are a few other. In almost every example you see, there is always the second, fourth, or fifth generation of the product or the company that actually came and took the entire market share. So don't worry about somebody saying, oh, there's already product that is in the market for whatever you're trying to do. So that's one major aspect. Your vision has to be about creating an impact. And again, going back to my first slide, the bigger the impact, the more motivated you will get. And so are the rewards in the end. And entrepreneurship is a perseverance game. There are a lot of people sayings that keep going on saying, don't quit. I agree. You should try and not quit, but on the flip side, you should know when to quit. Not every idea will work. People don't have unlimited resources, don't have unlimited money. At some point, you need to know when you're giving up, and when an idea needs to be given up. So you actually do a full-blown detour and try and come up with the solution in a completely different angle. And coming back to the become self-aware standpoint, the right side graphic is from is a graphic from my company, Wired to Perform. This is my profile, which is comparing myself in this case as a user to a typical entrepreneur. This is a visual to actually say how do you overlap yourself on what a typical entrepreneur's profile would look like or is. So from a roller coaster ride standpoint, so this is what a day in the life of an entrepreneur is. I've lived through enough of these days, and I continue to keep living. I wake up with any of these emotions, and I end the day with any of the other emotions, most of the times in the opposite spectrum. So this is, again, a very popular, very well searched image where actually say, look for a day in the life of entrepreneur. There are various versions of this stuff where the graph looks exactly the same, where the ups and downs through the day are phenomenal. And this is surely not for, as they say, people who are faint at heart. If you are not passionate about what you're doing, there'll be enough depths in the day where you'll feel like wanting to give up. So don't do that. And the way you don't do that is if you keep remembering yourself as to why you actually started it. And so this is the other major aspect, which is, focus on the destination and embrace the detours, because a lot of you, I'm assuming, are science students. There will be numerous ways in which you can actually get to the answer, or numerous formulas to get to the solution. The whole idea is you need to solve the problem. It's not really what formula you use to get to the destination. There'll be numerous detours that you'll have to take. There'll be various things, look at the life we are living with COVID these days. You'll have to embrace various things. There'll be numerous starts and stops that you'll have to do. And everybody has to embrace uncertainty. There is nothing guaranteed in life, and there is surely nothing guaranteed in an entrepreneur's life. So it's very important for us to embrace uncertainty. And to me, a lot of times that's what makes it fun. That's what makes you come back the next day and say, given from a situation awareness standpoint, given what we know today, what is it that we need to do to make the best out of it? And this is another major thing, like Shivani mentioned, don't ever be afraid to ask for help. You'll be shocked with the number of people who will stop what they're doing for a fellow entrepreneur to get help. And even if they can't help, they'll go find somebody else who can actually help you in your question. This is the other major aspect. You have to join a support system or a community. Not just in the entrepreneur world, in everything in life. Things get very lonely, especially in the entrepreneurship world. The life becomes very lonely. There are numerous things that you can't speak to your wife, your parents, your close friends, your staff, whatever be the case. You always need to find yourself somebody that you can actually open yourself up with, and seek out mentors, and more importantly, surround yourself with people who can relate to you in what you're going through, because it's fairly easy for people who can't understand our culture, for example, or people who are not from the industry or what you're trying to do. If they can't really relate to you, or you relate to them, you're actually going to be talking past each other. So it's a very important aspect that you're actually connecting to each other at an emotional level first. Then you need to find somebody who is very who you respect and believe in. So a lot of times you'll want to just listen to what they say, and just assume what they're saying is right. Like you're listening to your teacher, and if they say something, or you're listening to your parent and when there's something, you just know they're telling you with your best results in their heart. And this is the other major aspect. Again, a Why to Perform graphic being shown here. A lot of people ask me, Raghu, when should I hire my first person in the team, or who should that be? That the first hire should be based on what your struggles are. So this is my graphic showing you as a standard deviation spectrum, again, based on the entrepreneur graphic analytics, showing you, these, in this case, they're actually this graphic is saying, I'm going to be very bad at execution, as an example. So my first hire will be somebody who is going to help me execute, right? So that is what you want to do. And from a struggle standpoint is one. The other major standpoint is you want to hire and delegate something that you don't enjoy doing. And so this is a fantastic summary of the earlier 10 slides. These are by far the most common mistakes, the top 10 mistakes that a startup founders would do. I do many of these myself, so I'm by no means saying I'm an expert in any of these. The important aspect is to actually keep looking at this graphic as frequently as you can to know which of these 10 am I doing as of now. I can bet I'm doing 4 or 5 of these on a daily, monthly basis. So it's very important for everybody to keep this in mind and go through a continuous recalibration process. And that's my last slide. So thank you. Hopefully I gave some pointers that will help the future generation.
Thank you, Mr. Raghu, for enlightening us about these lessons that we should keep in our mind. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to ask Mr. Raghu.
Hi, Uncle. I'm Harshini Metapalli. Based on what you have told us, we realize that you have worked very hard on multiple startups and projects. So how do you generate new ideas?
Oh, generating ideas is the easiest part. If you actually are doing anything simple. So one major quote that I really like from that Bill Gates had said is, if you have the most complex problem, if you that you are actually having, give that to the laziest person in the room. I consider myself the laziest person in the room. So to me, any problem, any task that I'm actually doing, I'm constantly thinking about, is there a better way of doing it where I reduce the number of steps? To me, this whole thing of people delivering food at home, the Uber Eats, DoorDashes of the world, is because of most probably people like me who are lazy to go to the restaurant and get food. So every time you're actually put this, I'm lazy hat on, is when you'll start thinking, why do I need to do this task? Is there a better way of doing it? Right. So to me, that is what drives majority of my ideas.
Thank you.
This concludes this part of this segment. Now I'll pass it over to Nainika Khande.
Thank you, Sanjana. Hello, my name is Nainika Khande, and our next speaker will be Sarath K. Kuravi. He's the co-founder and EVP of Intucio, which is a data analytics software and service company that helps solving business problems, investing the advances in artificial intelligence and machine learning. He will be speaking about some common myths in entrepreneurship for us. I turn it over to Mr. Sarath K. Kuravi for his amazing presentation.
I think that's probably the best introduction this evening. She started off saying that it's going to be an amazing presentation. Thank you for that great introduction. Before earlier this afternoon, I was asking my daughter, Sami, I'm like, I have to talk about entrepreneurship, what should I say and what should I not say? Couple of things she told me. One is, Dad, don't ask people to do anything. Don't call out on anybody. Well, one of the things I learned as an entrepreneur is, you should always go with your gut. What you think and what you feel is right, you should do. So I'm going to go ahead and still do what I think is right. So what I want all of you to do, if you will, and you don't have to do it right away. You can probably do it after the presentations here today. But before the end of the day, I want you to take every one of you, no matter what your age is, whether you are young, as young as 4 or 5 years old, or you're 50 years old, it doesn't matter. Take a piece of paper and write down today, put the date and say that I want to be an entrepreneur. And if so, I want to do something. What is that X that I want to do? Or you can actually take that piece of paper and say, I do not want to be an entrepreneur after listening to all of this today. So feel free to do either one of them, but really write it down, put it up, seal the envelope, and store it in a place where you can find it in a 10 years time. So 10 years from now, open it up and see what you have written about yourself. Is this what you're really going to do, or has things changed? And some of you, I know that you're not really big on writing on a piece of paper. If you want to do it, put it in a notepad, on your phone and an Instagram. Actually, what I like to do is, I like to use Facebook as a blog. Whenever I want to share something that, I want to remember myself, I put it on my Facebook account. A lot of people do it for others, but I just do it for myself. So if you're into Facebook, Instagram, or something like that, put it on your wall. Do it today. As of today, this is what you wanted to do. You wanted to be an entrepreneur, or you did not want to be an entrepreneur. And if you wanted to be an entrepreneur, what area you want to be in as an entrepreneur. I bet you, I think you're going to have a lot of fun 10 years later when you're going to open it and look at it. All right. I hope everybody's up for the challenge. There you go. Sanvi, sorry, I didn't hear you. Listen to you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my my screen here. So if you can see that, I think we are going to go ahead and get started. Okay. So Raghu and Shivani made some great points about entrepreneurship. What are the aspects of becoming an entrepreneur? What are the things common? I think they did talk about common pitfalls as well, and talked about persistence and everything else. What I'm going to talk about is some of the myths of entrepreneurship. People have certain ideas what it means to be an entrepreneur and what it's not. So I'm going to try to dispel some of them at least based on my experience and based on the experiences around me, of people around me. Because one thing I learned in life, you have to learn from others' experiences. You cannot learn everything from your own mistakes. Yes, you have to learn from your mistakes, but you should be able to learn from others' mistakes as well, others' experiences. There is no mistake. So let's start. I think the first thing is that people think entrepreneurs are, inherently risk takers. They want to take a lot of risks. I passed out from college a long time ago, and even today, we have this WhatsApp group. I'm sure all of you have some of these groups as well. A lot of my friends, most of my friends are working regular jobs. One thing they asked me is, I could never be like you. I don't understand how you were able to take so much risk. Well, let me tell you, entrepreneurs are not necessarily huge risk takers. Yes, there is a certain element of risk in becoming an entrepreneur, but a lot of them take calculated risks. Entrepreneurs want to do this because they have a passion to do something, and there are ways to do it where you're not putting a lot of things online. As you grow older, there's more and more at stake. So it's important for you to balance the risk with the outcome that you want to get. So that's one thing that I want to say right away. I myself, I don't feel that I took a lot of risk. I have started, I've gradually moved on to become more and more of an entrepreneur, more relied on the company. But the initial stages, I was able to balance my entrepreneurship dream with bringing the money home so that the family can run. So there are ways to do it. Number two, I think this is probably a lot of people think, okay, I want to be my own boss. That's why I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to work for somebody else. Well, guess what? Entrepreneurs are not necessarily their own boss. Everybody has to answer to a boss. I think some of us who are married would like to joke that our boss is our wife. But let's not talk about that. But here, when you're an entrepreneur, your customers are your boss. Especially if a large portion of your business is dependent on your customers, they are your boss. So you need to treat them like they're your boss. And if you happen to have employees, and some of them are, if not most of them are your key employees, think of them as your boss. Your partners, your people on your management team, they could be your boss. Your company, your organization is your boss. Ultimately, the company is dictating what you have to do and what you should not be doing. So that's one common myth. Don't think that you're suddenly going to feel that you're your own boss. This is another one. I think people have this notion that, I'm just not born to be an entrepreneur. It's just not in me. Well, I'll tell you from my experience, entrepreneurs are not born. They are made. I think it all starts from a single idea. The idea is not about a product or a service that you want to do. The idea is that you want to be an entrepreneur. I think that's the key. You need to think that I want to be an entrepreneur. What you want to do is, comes next. But you can definitely cultivate it. It's not something that you have to be born with. Well, guess what? That looks like fun, right? If somebody wants to open a bakery business, they started their own bakery business, and looks like it's all fun. telling you, entrepreneurship is definitely not fun all the time. And I think Raghu also showed a slide where he showed the peaks and valleys. I think we all like to refer to it as a roller coaster. There are highs in entrepreneurship. One thing I would like to say probably is that, having done both sides of the coin, being an employee as well as an entrepreneur, the highs are typically higher than what you would achieve. And the lows, similarly, the lows are worse than what you would be when you're an employee of an organization. The lows, when you're at your lowest point, it really feels horrible and worse. So it's definitely not fun all the time. Don't just think that that's what you'll be doing every day, but you need to think that this whole entrepreneurship journey is fun as a whole. That's what we need to be looking forward to. Yeah, this is the other one, right? Yeah, I don't have money. My dad doesn't have money. My parents don't have money. Nobody is giving me money. I don't have any venture capitalist that's going to be investing in me. Well, it does not require huge funding. Well, maybe it requires a little bit of money, but in this day and age, I think there are many, many businesses that you can start without requiring any kind of funding. And if you're really interested in doing it, there will be people who are willing to help. Like Raghu said, I think again another point that Raghu made. You just have to ask. If you ask, I think there are many people who are more than happy to stop what they're doing and help you out, whether financially or otherwise. So let that not be a point where you want to stop yourself from becoming an entrepreneur. Yeah. This is right. Yeah, we like to think, oh, he's the boss of the company, so he knows exactly what to do, and he knows how to get it. Guess what? Most of us don't know exactly what we want. Other than the fact that we want to run the company, we want to do something for our organization and our business and for the customers. But one thing is we will constantly improve. We will constantly learn. So learning is going to be a big aspect of entrepreneurship. Learning could be from the books. Learning could be from others. Learning could be from your peers or your own staff. But learning is the key because we don't know exactly what we are doing all the time. I'll tell you that. Yeah, I think Raghu touched upon this one, but I think I want to say this too. Entrepreneurs don't quit. I think this is another common myth. Yeah, you're just very persistent, right? So you don't want to quit. These are the people who never quit in their life. Not necessarily true. The first company that I kind of started was, it was moderate. It was reasonably successful, but it was not a huge success. So I quit that and moved on to the next thing. So it is okay to quit. There is nothing wrong in quitting. You have to give your best shot, no doubt about it. But there are always going to be ideas or the services that you're offering that may not be appropriate for the time or for the audience that you're going to appeal to. So yes, entrepreneurs do quit. What they do after they quit is also another matter. Some of them won't go on and try to start another business like Raghu did, serial entrepreneurs. But some of them would like to go back and probably get a job and work. So there is no harm in doing that. So you don't have to think that if I become an entrepreneur, I cannot quit. So it's okay to do it. Yes, great ideas, right? I mean, I am not. Let me tell you something. And this is not stereotyping, but I'm an engineer by education, and I did my undergrad engineering and master's in computer science. So I like to think that I'm not very creative. I don't have a lot of ideas, but here I am. So it's not necessary that entrepreneurs have great ideas. It could be improving upon an existing idea. It could be providing a service better. It could be providing a service at a location that was not available. So there are many ways to do this thing, and it's not always about having great ideas. So don't let that discourage you if you think you're not the creative sort. Yeah, so you have more freedom, forget about it. You will not have any freedom actually when you start your own business. As an employee, you probably can set some time. You can have some kind of a work-life balance where you can take 8 to 5 or 8 to 6. You could work, and then after that you could forget about it. But there is no more freedom in your schedule. You have to work continuously as much as you can. You have to stay engaged with your company. There is just, I feel this a lot of times. I feel like there is not enough hours in a day. That's just a fact of the matter. So there is not going to be any more freedom than when you're not an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs can do everything. Yeah, I think we talked about it, right? No. So one thing is, it's not like an independent person. You hear about all these founders, Steve Jobs or Larry Page or Elon Musk. No, they cannot do everything. Most of the time, entrepreneurs need good partners, good team around themselves to actually be successful. They might have an idea. They may be good at executing the idea. They may not be good at executing the idea. Or, there might be somebody else who has the idea and, they are just there to execute. So yeah, we need to think that entrepreneurs need help and they are going to get what they need from others. Well, isn't it great to be a star of your own show? It's not necessarily true. You don't think that if you want to be in the spotlight, that this is the best way to be in spotlight. There are many other ways to be in the spotlight. Maybe you can do a TikTok video that's probably going to put you in the spotlight, but starting your own business definitely is not going to do it. But it is going to give you a lot of satisfaction because you're actually able to make a difference in the society around you, for the people that work with you, and that is what, if you can get satisfaction from it, then this is for you. But definitely not if you want to seek any kind of focus or spotlight. Well, we think, right? I mean, he has a company, so he's got a lot of money. Let me tell you, entrepreneurs are not only motivated by money. Most of the time, the motivation is to do something different, to think out of the box, help people. I myself, when I think about it, how I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I always wanted to help people. That's my thing. I feel that the best way to help people is to start a company. Whether that way, that's going to give you an opportunity to do it. So money, yes, it will come. It may not come. Let me tell you, it's not necessary that you will actually make more money. There is a lot of employees that make a lot more money than the entrepreneurs. That should not be the pure motivation to become an entrepreneur. We talked about this. No more guarantee of freedom. This is the last slide. Is there a secret silver bullet or a key to success that if I do this or follow these 10 steps, what Raghu said, or what I'm talking about, not following those myths? No, there is just no silver bullet. People reach their destination different ways. And I'd like to say that it's not a destination, it is a journey. I don't think you will ever feel complete that you have reached your destination. You're always going to think that you need to think that it's a journey. You're on this exciting, interesting journey that has a lot of problems ahead of you, but there's also a lot of fun. There's a lot of scenery that is going by as you take this journey. Thank you all, and go make that startup. Hope that helps. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Sarth, for the presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, Uncle. I do. But first of all, thanks to all 3 speakers for speaking and giving us so much information and a way for you guys to motivate us to make a decision for our future. But my question for Sharath Uncle is, what do you think is the hardest obstacle that you had to go through? And do you have any advice for us?
Yeah, so the hardest obstacle, so there is no one hardest, there's no one particular obstacle that I think is the hardest. The biggest challenge is actually when you have a dream, like I was saying, earlier on in my life, when I was younger, I just wanted to be an entrepreneur. I don't know, it just kind of stuck in my mind. The hardest obstacle is to actually take the step to become an entrepreneur, to incorporate that company, or to actually say that I'm going to do this. So the start is the hardest thing. After that, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but the starting is always going to be the challenge. And I think that's a challenge for a lot of people, because a lot of people have these dreams. They think about, one day I'm going to do this, one day I'm going to start my own company, one day I'm going to put this idea into practice. The biggest challenge is that one day, when is it going to come? I think as long as you can take that step, and there is no right answer how you start it. It's not about funding. It's not about market research. It's not about business plan. It's not about partners or employees or anything like that. It's just taking that first step that I am going to do it. That's the biggest obstacle. So it's a mental obstacle more than a physical obstacle out there. The advice I have for you is, like I said, I think if you really want to do it, I think you've heard enough from all of us. There are pros and cons. If you really want to do it, I would say just go for it. Be persistent about it, and keep that in the back of your mind, no matter what your age is. Maybe you are in school right now. Some of you are in school. You have to go on to college. You want to go on probably to work for a few years and then start, or you want to do something on the side, while you are studying. It's totally up to you. But don't leave that thought don't let that thought leave your mind. Just keep it there. If this is what you want to do, keep it there, and there will be a way for you to do this.
Okay, thank you so much, Uncle.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I will pass it over to Naveen Uncle.
Thank you, kids. That was really wonderful. Can we have our panelists back, please? Raghuji, do you mind turning on your camera? Perfect. Okay, so this is the segment where we're going to have a panel discussion. And frankly, kids, one thing I would like to say personally is I never had anything like this when I was growing up. This is a great opportunity for you guys to know about this idea of entrepreneurship and the ways to explore things. So please make sure any question that you have on anything that you want to know about entrepreneurship, you either send us a message on the Facebook chat or using the Zoom chat window. We would be glad to taking those questions to the panel. Before we move on to the panel discussion, we do have one more person who will be joining the panel along with Mr. Sharath and Mr. Raghu Garu. This person is no stranger for anyone. This person is also a serial entrepreneur. And this person has an expertise in wide domains, starting from enterprise architecture to supply chain sourcing technology, in tourism, manufacturing. And this person is the founder of Simple Group, and also founded Caseworthy Inc. and also DirectWorks Inc. This person has almost 6 patents in the sourcing, supply chain sourcing technologies, and he also recently got 1 patent on the tourism domain for an ecodome. So please help me welcome this person that you see on the spotlight right now, Mr. Paparao Gummadapu Garu. So here we are. We have 4 panelists for us, and you can pick the brains as much as you want. These guys are ready with their answers. And I personally have my own questions too, if the kids give me a chance. And while I was going through the presentations, Raghuji, I can feel the graph in my mind, the ups and downs between the presentations. Suddenly, yes, I want to do this, and suddenly I will be on the lower side of the spectrum all of a sudden. It's a perfect balance of information that everyone has presented. With that being said, I just got someone who has raised their hand who has a first question. Oh, here he is. That is Abhinav. Go ahead, Abhinav. Can you unmute yourself? Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Abhinav, and my question for any of you is there a specific event in your life that motivated you to become an entrepreneur over doing anything else?
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the panelists who want to pick up that question, or Papa Ragaru, since you are fresh off the bat, I'll have you lead that answer if you don't mind. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah. I mean, again, like everyone said, it's not something you think from your childhood to become one, right? So it's, for some people, it happens as a matter of fact, working in a company. And for some, you know, you have that notion looking at somebody and say, hey, I wanted to become like that. But in my case, I would say, you know, I was working for a company here in US in an R&D team. And I came up with many ideas there in the R&D team, which were not available anywhere else in the country, in that industry, right? So anywhere else in the world. And with that said, you know, that's where I started looking at, hey, there is something more than just working as an employee. And, you know, why can't we create something, be a creator, and, you know, any business problem that there is, come up with a solution, a technical solution that is possible, is where I started, at least my journey as an entrepreneur. And that R&D team, getting into that R&D team and working with the right people actually, you know, motivated me and get to the next level of inventing something, and also coming up with all the patents, like I said, you know, looking at what are available in the industry, and even small things, right? Sometimes the business process you think about, nobody have patented it or nobody has implemented it, right? So I would say even in day-to-day life, you may see a lot of things that are going on, and you might think, hey, nobody has implemented anything for this. You know, it could be a disruptive idea for you to either replicate what's there already, or something that doesn't exist that you're creating.
Thank you, Papa Ragaru. Sharath or Raghuji, anything you want to add to that before we?
Yeah, I can take, you know, to me, this is all a individual journey, like Papa Rao and Sharath mentioned. So, but for me, you know, I come from my father was into constructions back in India. So when I used to often go to the construction sites with him, and the most common theme during the conversations was all about, like Sharath mentioned, helping others. So one statement that he made that stuck to me, as if he told me a few minutes back, is Raghu, his comment to me was, Raghu, I never want you to be a taker of help. I want you to be a giver. And for me, how I translated that to me is, he wanted me to provide jobs to other people. Right. So to me, that's what started that journey when you know, I was, you know, less than 10 years old, from a thought process standpoint. So it depends on, you know, the numerous life instances that you'll actually go through. I know numerous friends who never thought they were an entrepreneur, you know, from a full name tag standpoint. But they've been thinking about innovation, like, you know, Papa Rao went through his journey, and suddenly it occurs to you, well, at some point, maybe I should actually go do this for myself, because there are numerous times where, you know, just you land up into that spot of being an entrepreneur. And everybody, I can bet, will have their own journeys or trigger points.
Definitely. Thank you.
So I can quickly add, and I think this is important that I want to share, is a lot of times things don't happen because there is a triggering point or an incident. Although, those are the things that are easily explainable, that is something that people relate to. But a lot of times it could be, you're like something like this, you're listening to a panel of speakers and then you suddenly thought that sounds interesting, is this a triggering point? Maybe, maybe not. So for me, it was something like that, when I was younger, I was just looking at these large companies and I was thinking, what are they doing? How are they doing? And it just stuck to me that sounds interesting. That's probably what I want to do. There was no one incident in my life, but it just kind of built over a period of time. But like I mentioned earlier, I think the key is, which is why I was telling earlier, you should write it down today, what you want to do or what you don't want to do. The key is to have that thought, keep that thought going, and I think things will happen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Abhi, thank you so much for a great question. I do see we have someone else here who is ready to ask a question. That would be, who is this? Hasita. Go ahead, Hasita. What's your question?
Hello, my name is Hasita Tatipali, and I have a question for both of you. What are you most proud of when you opened your business? What were you most proud of?
Wow, that's a good one. What are you most proud of when you first opened one of your entrepreneurship or your companies? Any takers who wants to take that first?
Yeah, I can take it first. I'm just proud of the fact that I actually started a company. I think that in itself, makes you feel proud because I have taken the first step towards what I believed was my dream. I think if you follow me, I think that's a recurring theme that I like to say, is the fact that you take a step towards doing what you want to do is going to be huge. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. So I myself, just the fact that I was able to do that, and incorporate a company or start it, whether it has gone anywhere, has any success, has, done something, has a brilliant idea or not, didn't matter. Just the fact for me, I think the simplest answer is just the fact for me that I actually started the company itself was an achievement. I felt like an achievement.
Creating a first job, after started the company, I thought, I'm very proud of for the fact, creating the first job from the company and gave me so much satisfaction.
Yeah, for me, I'm not sure. I was very proud when the day I started the company, because I started my first company when I was 17 years old. So I don't even remember what that day looked like. But the proudest moment for me in my career was the day we sold my company Ship Express, and again, anecdotally, when I told my mom back in India, saying, Ahmad, the company got sold to GE, and her first comment to me was not, for how much, you made money and stuff. Her first comment to me was, oh, you made 250 families more secure. These 250 families are the employees of the company. So to me, that is when I felt for the proudness for the first time. So, and like Sharath mentioned, it is a journey. The day you incorporate is fantastic, is surely something that you want to remember from an emotion standpoint. But to me, there'll be plenty of emotions you have to go through, and it's always important to celebrate all the good points through the journey.
Great. Definitely a proud moment, no matter if the idea is success or a failure. Definitely a moment that everyone is proud of. Thank you, Hasita, for your wonderful question. I do see some chats coming up on the questions on the chat window, but I do have this one volunteer who is ready and rocking in his entrepreneur chair in his executive office. All right, Samir, what's your question?
My question is, how has your failures helped you develop and grow in your success in life?
How did your failures help you to grow and succeed in life? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to me, the one of the slides I had where you never get emotionally connected to the problem, where you always, it's like doing a science project. There'll be numerous failures in the experiment, and running a company is a series of experiments. So it is okay to know whatever you're trying, that experiment won't work. So you come back to the lab next day in the morning and restart with a new set of formula. So to me, this is a lifelong experiment that's going, and it's a major evolutionary process. So that's what I'd say. So there's no right or wrong. There is a way. There are multiple ways, and keep at it.
Thank you. Anyone else adding to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what other speakers have said before. The failure, it's a lot of times you have to know the right time when to exit, right? So is an important aspect. It's not that, you have to keep running until you make it successful. Sometimes you have to find that right time to also quit. I would say, that's where you learn from your failures and mistakes. When is the right time to quit, and when is the right time to keep going on?
So for me, I think you probably have heard this. If not, I think this is important. Failure is the stepping stone to success. Treat it as such. There is no complete failure as such. There are always setbacks, but there is not a complete failure in anything that you do, as long as you have the mindset to come out of it. So a failure could be, or a temporary setback could be, you're trying to win a business and your customer is not interested in, buying from you. So that is a setback, I call it, But what you learn from it is, what is it that I did wrong? What is it that I did not do correctly to appeal, to show the value that we are offering? And you fine tune your approach, and you can go ahead and then make the adjustment correction the next time. So that's all it is. That's how I see it. And one more thing I want to say, Naveen Garu, I think I know that you mentioned kids can ask questions. It's good to hear from kids, but I'm sure if some of the kids are younger, or if their parents want to ask, or even if adults want to ask, I think it's something that a lot of us can relate to. I believe, at least. Please,
yes, sir.
I think that would be
I
fine.
do have those questions coming in the chat. So I have one more volunteer who just shared it. So once that is done, we will move on to those questions in the chat. Okay, here is my next volunteer who has a question. Who is this? Sri Harshita, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sri Harshita Chanchala, and I have a question for all three of you. What inspired you to name your businesses what it is called now?
We need the reasoning behind your business names now. Okay.
I can go first. At least for me, first thing I did was go look at if the trademark is available, if the website is available, and something that starts with simple so everybody can understand. So pretty much most of my companies, you would say simple, simple steps to financial freedom, or simple way to do things. Since we're trying to solve the complex business problems, or even a simple business problems with a technology solutions most of the time. So that's how I go about it. I make sure, everything that I'm doing not just pick a name and then find out it's not available for me to use. I just go through that and then figure out that's the right way to go about it.
Papara, you definitely followed a shortcut. The management strategies, whenever you have an objective, there is something that says, I think it's called the KISS acronym, keep it simple, and you pretty much went with that. Nice. Sharath Garu, anything for your reasoning? Sharath Garu, you're speaking on mute and we lost your video. There you go. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think I was just moving around my mouse here. Yeah, let me say this again. Entrepreneurship is, a great idea, and we're all excited, and we want to name our companies. We want to come up with the best name. But like Mr. Paparao said, a lot of times we tend to get more practical and say that, okay, this is the name that is easy to remember probably, or this is the name that we have a website, a domain available, because these days you need to make sure that you have a presence online. Or this is the name that is a made-up name so that it is easy to trademark, so you don't have any issues. So that it tends to be a little bit more practical than emotional. However, having said that, I will tell you this: when I started my first company, it was a long time ago. I called it Indus Tech Inc. I called it IND-US. So IND stands for India, U for US for US, and then it's a tech company. So I call it Indus Tech Inc. Now, since then, I don't think so emotionally anymore. It's the current company's name is chosen by my partner, and we just go with what is practical, and like Mr. Paparao said, what is a made-up name that's easily available for trademark, and the domain name is available.
Nice. Raghuji, any secrets behind your company name?
No, it is more logical in my view. We wanted to see, Ship Express, the previous company that I started here, it got sold. So that was an easy copy paste exercise. Federal Express those days, changed their name to Federal Express during the year we started. So we said, okay, the Federal Express, you can't beat the brand. So we actually called ourselves Ship Express. And just to be cute, we removed the E in the Express and just called it Ship Express without the E. That was a nightmare because now every time we tell somebody the name, now we have to tell them Ship Express without the E, it started getting annoying. But with the jokes apart, with the company Why to Perform, we wanted to name something that is easy for people to relate to. So Why to Perform is really about people, and what we wanted to bring out and tell people is how are they wired to perform in whatever industry or task or activity that they're going to be performing in. So to me, it was a fairly logical exercise.
Definitely point noted. We also have to keep in mind how we tell our company name to our customers too. Definitely. Thank you for that. Thank you, Sri Harshita. That was a good question. We all got to know some insights on how they put up their company names. Okay, moving on to the questions we have on the chat. This is, I'm pretty sure this is coming from a parent. The question we have is, what challenges or fears that you noticed in immigrants, especially without a green card, to be an entrepreneur? The challenges for those on a work visa or going through their green card process to be an entrepreneur.
Legally there shouldn't be. Anybody on H1 should be able to start a company, except they can't sponsor their own H1. Yeah, you being on H1, you can start companies. So that you having green card, citizen, H1 should not be the reason for you not to be able to start a company.
Thank you, sir.
So, go ahead, Mr. Papa.
I mean, there are different types of company structures that are available. You know, we don't have to go into details from LLC to S corp to corp. So, I mean, different companies will allow you, even like Raghu mentioned, for H1s can be a passive shareholders and things like that. So there are options now for everybody, you know, to be able to start these companies and do it.
And just as a disclaimer, so none of us get sued. You know, this is not a legal advice.
Yes.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, actually, it's you know, I know that it's an interesting proposition, right? As an immigrant, you tend to feel that, you know, this is a foreign country. You do not understand the culture. You may or you may not, or you know, you're not born and brought up here, so it is it's tougher for an immigrant to start a business or, you know, succeed in business. But if you look at the statistics, 1 in 4 businesses in this country have been started by immigrants, you know, first generation immigrants, people who are not born in this country. They are the ones who actually have started the business, and a lot of them have been successful as well. So being an immigrant, actually, I think is an advantage rather than a disadvantage, because the mindset that you could leave everything behind, you know, leave your home country, people around you, go to a different country to be successful, to make something out of your life, means that you're wired for that stuff. You know? So you actually, it is, in my mind, easier. Not only in my mind, you know, statistically speaking, it's far more easier for the immigrant to be a successful entrepreneur. Now, in terms of the visas and the status and other things, I think Raghu and Papa Raghu actually have talked about that. So from that perspective, there are ways that you can do it.
Thank you. There was an interesting comment made when we were talking about the legal expertise. Someone mentioned that just do it. If you get sued, means that you succeeded.
Oh, not always.
I know. All right. So there has been a flurry of questions that came in. This is from the same person, but I would like to go on with these questions. Can you share your experience on how did you get your first customer?
For me, it was through the connections that I knew, you know, or people who knew what I'm doing. So it was, and for the previous company, it was again people who knew the founder, my co-founder in that case. So generally, invariably, your first set of customers will be people who you know, who are fairly approachable to you instead of a random cold call.
Got it.
Yeah. So for me, what I would like to say is, I think Raghu said it nicely. The first customer, or even the first set of customers, I think he said that, is always going to get a customer, first of all, right? So first of all, to get a customer, the customer has to trust you personally, and the customer has to trust in your skills professionally. So those are the two things that need to happen for somebody to sign up as your customer. Now, who will trust you personally? The people who know you, the people who knows you very well, that they are ready to go back for you. So this is an important thing. So the first customer came through my personal network, nothing like, you know, cold calls or, you know, somebody unknown is not going to sign up as a customer. The first customer will come from either your colleagues, somebody who has worked with you currently or in the past, or will come from your personal friendships and somebody who knows you personally very well. That's how I got it.
Yeah, I have mixed experiences. In one of the company, I started with the first customer, before starting the company, finding a first customer. But in other companies, the presentation skills are the key, and the message that you're putting out there, make sure it's crisp and you're not wasting a lot of time, and be to the point. And again, there will be a lot of back and forths, but making sure winning the first customer, I would say, is a bigger success for the company and the satisfaction that it gives you after you start the company, making it live and getting the first customer.
Awesome. Thank you. So just to summarize, there is networking that helped one, there is trust that helped the other one, and the way you pitch in your idea or your communication skills. So that is a summary of that question. Okay, moving along. How do you manage remote teams if it is in India, especially this is for the three of you, from managing it from here? How do you manage your remote teams?
I mean, it is kind of difficult. It is not easy. That's one thing I can say. And again, that's where some of the leadership skills would come in, and also using technology to your advantage will also help. If you wanted to go through, again, everyday calls and trying the old ways, they may not work as well because you have very less time in a day, and you staying up all night and working with them hand in hand, that may not work for a long time to scale your team and scale the company. So you need to, I would say, use all the technology that is available, share the information, collaboration, and even the live chat and offline collaboration and things like that. Whatever can help from the technology standpoint is what I see the improvement that we can make to work better with an offshore team.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on remote?
I'd say, Sharath had one of his myths, right? I forget the number that said, you don't have freedom for time. Well, if you have an offshore team, forget nights, right? So daytime, you're worrying about customers here. Nighttime, you're worrying about your employees. So the moment you have an offshore team, you are working at least double, if not triple the amount of work that a normal onshore person would actually be doing. So I wake up at 2 in the morning most of the days because I have my development team in Sri Lanka. I'm sure Papa Rao and Sharath are doing similar stuff because they have teams in India too. You forget whether it is day or night.
Wow. Is there anything you want to add to that?
The only other thing I want to add is that I think having good team is important. What I feel is having a leader in India, actually offshore, is going to make a huge difference versus trying to manage from here. That's what at least we found easy and to be successful.
This is an interesting question. I might actually have a follow-up on top of this question. Have you raised funding? How do you come up with a compelling story to tell?
There's always a compelling story, right? So the value proposition that you're bringing for the company with your idea, and have a good business plan and everything. And again, from my standpoint, just we don't want it to show so much, in there. We just want it to be practical, and don't want it to maybe over optimistic and try to set whatever we wanted to say to our investors, and keep those promises as much as possible, and show the progress of the company along the way, I think is how I would go about it.
I'd say how you go about raising funds and what you tell and how much of the story, like Papa Rao mentioned, is all going to be different depending on what stage of the company you're in. So the early angel round, people don't expect too much detail. They want to know the set of parameters are very different. If you're actually raising funds after you have a profitable or a maturing business, I should say, not necessarily matured, maturing business that has been in existence for a few years and has income and so on. So the set of parameters that people look for at that level are completely different versus an angel investor who knows, they're dealing with a pre-revenue company. So it depends. There's plenty of literature online about, at what stage, what set of things are required from a fundraising standpoint. And again, there's no silver bullet, in my opinion. There are numerous people who have raised significant amounts of money for various things, and a lot of times it is people who are you in the right place at the right time, and is the technology, if it is a technology solution, is the technology, do you know what you're talking about?
Got it.
Do we have to answer all of us for the same question? I think you have a lot of questions, so if you want to just one or two answers, should be good so that we can keep moving.
I have my own personal follow-up to that. This is mostly a curious question. Here you are, a bunch of entrepreneurs and serial entrepreneurs, and at some point you need some funding at some point to take it to the next level. And on the other end of the spectrum, there are these angel investors or to-be venture capitalists who are eager to come on board and help some of these startup companies to come into fruition and expand it. How do these mergers happen? Where is all these networking and the connections are happening? You guys don't know anyone on the other end. These guys don't know anyone on the other end. How is this merger happening? At what point?
A merger as in people meeting together?
Yes.
Okay. So that's, from a Jacksonville standpoint, we are in a sad state geographically, in my opinion. That is one of the biggest reasons for me building Link. So I'm hoping a year from now, that is where this interaction will start happening. We'll have investment fund, we'll have money pouring into the building, we'll have an incubation center, we'll have an accelerator, whole bunch of things that will happen through the building. So that was the whole purpose of me building the building. But keeping that aside, sadly in Jacksonville kind of places, there's no set startup ecosystem in place. It's not like there are no startups. Startups exist. We are talking to 3 of us, and there are maybe 100 more of startups in Jacksonville. The problem is you have to go find who these people are. So we are trying to figure out how to create a more visible, I don't want to say formal, more visible startup ecosystem in North Florida. So for the Link is my attempt at having a physical presence for it.
I just want to add, and I was going to answer the previous question with this, but half jokingly probably, if you want serious funding, you should be in California. You should move to California. And I say this half jokingly, as in it is half truth. I mean, there are ways for you to raise funding from here, but like Raghu said, there is no ecosystem. And like you said, like the question, so there is no easy way for these interactions to happen. Versus if you actually are in California, there's a lot more interactions that happen. And, that's the difference. I think we need to change that, bridge that gap, but it is part of your life. If you want to live in Jacksonville, go to the beach every week, then you have other challenges.
Yeah, plan to travel, yeah, right? Plan to travel.
Yeah, plan to travel, yeah.
And until Raghu brings up the link, and we'll all be happy with that. So finding people and
there you go. So, I'm working very hard to figure out. There's plenty of money in Jacksonville. There's plenty of money in Jacksonville. There's even more money in Florida itself. So we are working hard to bring a lot of money from Miami, Orlando, Tampa to Jacksonville. So it'll be fun. So a year from now, there'll be a lot more action in town.
Great. I just want to slowly tie into another question I got in the chat. So in the current situation, is there a community or a forum where you all can connect locally in Jacksonville that you guys are aware of? A networking kind of a setup for entrepreneurs within Jacksonville?
I think Synapse is probably the closest in Florida, you would say.
Yeah, Synapse is the biggest, but sadly, Synapse is a annual event. So they are one of the guys that I'm talking to bring them to and create a regional event per se that will at least be half yearly or quarterly here. But from, that is what, we wanted to do, when me and Sharath were on the board for the Indo-US Chamber. That was our goal, where we were actually having monthly meetings where, there is some sense of connectivity of especially our community to people who are entrepreneurial in nature. Not necessarily they have their own companies, but even if they are working somewhere else, but they want to learn about stuff. So the Indo-US Chamber used to be the place. Unfortunately, I have not been in attendance in recent set of years, but Sharath is more active in those than I am these days, I think.
Yeah, there's nothing right now in Jacksonville.
Yeah, at least this is the first attempt from Taja, and hopefully from here we can just see something going.
Yep. So kids, if you're listening to this, we don't have a networking group in Jacksonville for entrepreneurs. This is something that you want to stumble on, get working on it.
Or there are networking people for sure. There are networking organizations for sure in Jacksonville. So to me, a lot of it is, my mind was more about the younger generation in the call. Sure. So there is no avenue for them for sure. And a lot of times the issue is, them meeting themselves, will not be of much help or of impactful. They should actually be commingling with other people, especially who have failed. So to me, like Sharath mentioned, it's all about learning from somebody else's failures. So more questions that come about, what are all the different failures people had? To me, that those should be the questions that drive. And if somebody can actually build an encyclopedia, you'll see a pattern emerge of, like my last slide, which says the top 10 mistakes. That is universal. It's not like you've conquered that once. You're actually getting into the same set of mistakes on a recurring basis. So some more frequent interactions will be important.
Definitely. Thank you. So I just want to give a heads up to all our audience. We have 10 minutes, so we will quickly take one or two questions before we wrap up. So I got a couple more questions here. What is the difficult part of scaling of size? So that's how much is the question I got. I don't have any more details before and after from a context perspective. What is the difficult part of scaling up of size? Being an entrepreneur is what I'm guessing the question is.
I guess Raghu can take it. Scaling up from your platform.
Yeah, I can take. A lot of times, it's purely economics. There needs to be enough demand for whatever your product is or a service is. And once there is demand, you need to figure out a way to fulfill that particular demand, which is your supply problem. And to be able to supply, you need potentially, if it is a manufactured product, you need raw material to be able to produce your product before it is sold, which invariably means you need cash to fund that particular operation, or you need people to actually build the product and so on. So invariably, you'll need enough cash. Funding, when I say funding, it's not necessarily equity funding that you need. You need a way to fulfill in terms of debt, which is loans, or whatever way to do. And you know, if you actually go to Silicon Valley, the easiest thing for them that we all get very distracted with is, you know, company A raised $200 million, some other company raised $50 million. And numerous times, you know, going back to anecdotally, what we had in ShipExpress, you know, we raised $500,000. While year 2000, this was the dot-com bubble time. There were at least 200 or more companies talking about supply chain, which is exactly, so if you actually take our website and these 200 companies' website, exactly the same buzzwords. And they all raised a lot more money than we did. And I'm very happy to say we outlasted them a lot, by a long margin. A lot of these companies did not even exist after a year. So to me, lot goes to talk about perseverance and be able to manage your growth. So to me, you know, you can't just do blind thing. There's something called, you know, controlled growth. That is what you would want. If you have a VC involved, sadly, they'll want exponential growth. Now that is now the new buzzword in California, where, you know, they want everything exponential. Well, good theory, but, you know, not very practical from a business standpoint. So you want a controlled way of scaling, and there are surely multiple ways in which you can actually fund.
Yeah, good answer from Raghu. So I wanted to take a different perspective to that, and I'll say, you know, sometimes with our Indian mindset, we tend to like wear all the hats we wanted to wear, you know, not even thinking about scaling up, and you would just sit there for next 7-8 years, just getting the same revenue year over year and everything like that. It's also, you know, you have to think from the perspective that you have to hire the right people at the right time, based on the revenues you're getting. And otherwise you have to always think about, let's say you're out for a vacation for 2 weeks. Is your company is stuck, or is it still going on, right? So you need to make sure that you delegate enough tasks. Being an entrepreneur, just don't want to be wearing every hat you want to in the company and doing everything. And you know, that's what I see. Also, you know, scaling up is very important, and you have to do it the right way, like Raghu mentioned.
Thank you. I'm just moving along because there were some questions coming along, and Sharath Garu, I had to put you in the spotlight. This one is specifically for you. This person didn't put his name, but the question is, I knew you were working a full-time job. Even I knew that at some point. What day you decided to switch full-time job to a full-time entrepreneur role? What metric or measurement you had yourself to decide the swap?
A good question. I think not only myself, and this is an important thing, I wanted to make this point at some point. It is entrepreneurship doesn't happen automatically. It's not like a switch of a button that, you know, one day you are one employee and the next day you're an entrepreneur. It is a journey. You know, there's going to be a lot of overlap. Not only myself, and I think Raghu can attest to it. Most of the people that I know, you know, the college dorm to startup days are, you know, people are fewer in number. You know, most of the people, when they become an entrepreneur, they would have gone through work experience, gained the work experience, become an employee of some organization, and then started slowly building out. So there's, you know, most of the people go that route. So it is important for you, if you are interested in doing it, I think you should also take that route. So there is, most of us do that. It's just not something that people know because they only see one side or the other side. But so there is going to be an overlap. So personally speaking, I have done this. Now, is there a metric at which point I can say that I was able to move from one role to another role? Not really. It's more personal. You know, how many years you want to work. But one thing I would say is I did work full time, and then during my full time work itself, I was working for the to be an entrepreneur. So I was parallelly doing two things, and this basically takes, as you can imagine, if you're doing one job for 8 hours, now you have to put in 16 hours of your time to actually make something like this happen. So I was working extremely hard. I guess probably it's relative, and everybody works very hard to move the needle. And now there has to be some traction. But the traction could be in terms of the business, the revenue, the customers, the projects, the stickiness of the projects, the employees that you have. It could be any measure. There is not going to be one single measure that you can say that, okay, after X number of hours or after X number of employees or after X amount of revenue, I can make the switch from A to B. And I did not have any such measure. It's just a matter of a little bit of faith, because you have to ultimately take a leap of faith, saying that, okay, I could do this and I can take the risk of not having the income that I was making from my full-time job and still continue to sustain. So you should be ready to take slightly less income, but as long as you feel that you're not jeopardizing your whole family finances, I think you should be able to do it.
And I just have a statistic on Sharat's comment. So the like he mentioned, the days of people thinking, you know, Bill Gates started when he was 17 years old. You know, Zuckerberg started Facebook from college and stuff. You know, those are all, you know, nice to know. But the average startup age in the Silicon Valley these days or these years is 45. Average age of a startup founder. So there's a lot of time ahead, and lot of that is because of, you know, there's going to be some level of maturity, both from a product standpoint, from a thinking standpoint, from how to do things standpoint, that needs to come about for being a fairly successful entrepreneur. Otherwise, your number of mistakes that you would do will just be a lot larger from a quantity standpoint.
And I would like to add one more point, just tying back to the previous question. I mean, I think about funding, right? So if you actually are seeking funding, investors are going to ask you how many years have you worked in the industry? How do you actually have the capability to take this startup ahead? So it's almost critical. I think you cannot go for funding without having any kind of experience. So that's also going to help. Actually.
So we are coming close. What I have in my mind is there is one question directly for Paparao Garu. And then I have one question to end with, which everyone can relate to. So Paparao Garu, the question they had for you is, especially they specified your name. How do you differentiate between a tech and non-tech companies? Which one is better for you in a day to measure success? That's part one of the question. Part two is, how do you navigate bureaucracy in India? What's your recipe about dealing with government? So over to you.
Okay, so that is, you know, navigate bureaucracy. I would say in India, I have, you know, like things you have to take to the country in India. It's a developing country, India, so you cannot do the same business that you do in India also here. Because with my example, I came to Jacksonville and I have seen an opportunity with all the water sports and boats and boat manufacturing and everything. And I know we have a large coastline and a lot of water bodies back in India, but it is still developing, not many quality boats and everything that is available. So with the bureaucrats, I was able to take the presentation, and it's going to be funny, but people in India, they like the brands from US, right? So when I said I'm going to get the boats from US, and so these are the quality of the boats, they kind of like that. And I said after that, I'll start the manufacturing here to bring the technology from US, but build the boats here. So those two things, I would say, at least they wanted to see the quality of the boats and the water sports and those kind of things that are not available back in India to bring to the country. And I think I just gave that as an example, but anything that they don't have there in a developing country will make sense, to work through the bureaucracy there. And how do you differentiate it? Again, being a serial entrepreneur, even though you have the technology background, you would find out things like, things that are missing anywhere, right? So day-to-day life, and you kind of tend to get ideas based on what's missing, right? And I would say, non-tech companies, sometimes a little bit difficult, but you have assets in that company, the way you look at it. Compared to software, you can get a great success, but you can also end up with no assets at the end. If the company is a complete failure, you might lose the entire company, entire money from the investor standpoint. Whereas there could be some assets with the other companies. That's the major difference that I've seen. But working with the non-tech companies, sometimes you have to deal with not only the programmers and program managers. You have to deal with a lot of, even in the manufacturing company, you would see people with the skills who are making the boats, and the low salary workers also you have to deal with in some cases. But yeah, so once you are an entrepreneur, you will see, you can learn quickly. The day one, I have no idea about taking the boats in a container to India and all the documentation and everything that is associated with it. But you tend to learn it when you have something, a goal that you wanted to reach, and you see it's a good business to be in, you would get there.
Thank you so much. We're moving on to the last question. Before we move on, if everyone is not paying attention to the chat window, someone asked a question when the link building will go live. Raghuji just gave the date. It's the planned date is June or July of 2021. And there is a Facebook page. Please go and like their Facebook page to get any updates. And the link is www.thelink.zone. All right.
Z-O-N-E.
Is that, sir?
.zone.
.zone, yep. Okay. This is something everyone is going to relate to, and especially if your family is watching this webinar or will be viewing at the recording later, you might want to give the answer to the truth to the extent. So here is the question. How do you all manage time with family and entrepreneur time and differentiate?
Well, first of all, there's no differentiation. No, family and entrepreneurship, everything goes together. We do our best. We try to do our best. It's just like anything else. It's not just the entrepreneurs. I think people work hard in their jobs for their, everything else that they do. I think just like everybody else, it's not a different breed of people. We're all the same breed of people. We try our best to do what we can do. So one thing is, whatever time that you allocate for yourself, I think is probably going to be the first victim of this. So there is no more me time. If I wanted to go play golf, that's fun for me, not for the whole family. I think that's the first victim that actually happened to me. I used to like to play golf back in the day, but not anymore. Although I'm starting to think that I should do that again. It's probably going to be benefiting the business.
Yeah, that's the excuse. Sharath, keep doing it.
Yeah. So we try our best. I think there is just no easy answer.
Yeah, I totally agree. The amount. like the saying says, the behind every successful person, spouse is involved. To me, that is extremely true, because they are kind of sacrifices that they are doing, because you as an entrepreneur, you can't be available. There's no 8 to 5 anymore, right? So this is, as if you are awake, you're working. A lot of times you're actually working in your sleep. I jokingly say, because you're waking up in the middle of the night trying to solve a problem. So to me, there is something called an entrepreneur curse, which is, you're working 24 hours a day. Even in your sleep, and the fallout is going to be less time for the family. And it is extremely important for the family to be supportive. Otherwise, it'll be havoc in everybody's life.
Yeah, I agree completely with the other speakers. It's not easy, but family kind of understands it after a while.
Yeah, there you go. They're kind of forced to understand, sadly, in a lot of cases, but.
Okay, thank you so much. So we are 7 minutes overdue. I don't want to hold you up, guys, anymore. So Paparao garu, would you like to address our panel?
Yeah, again, I just wanted to put this out there for everyone. These are my inspiration quotes. If you wanted to take a screenshot or anything, if this will help you. Performance always comes from passion and not from pressures. Be passionate, love what you do, and do what you love. And the second one, tough times never last, but tough people do. The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. So this happened for many of us. We keep talking about an idea for a few years, and somebody else come up with the implementation. And entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't. Focus on future potential, not short-term sacrifice. And the most important one I tend to follow, even with me being Taja president with my team: don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today. That's the most important quote that I like. And hopefully you're seeing that with my work with Taja and our entire committee's work with Taja. We don't try to put off something until tomorrow what we can accomplish today, with all the communication and everything that's going out. And with that said, I wanted to thank all the panelists and speakers who spent their valuable time coming to this and helping all our youth and Jacksonville community with something like this. And like I said, we will be having a series of this. It's not just one event. And at the end, the last one, we'll also have an opportunity for our youth and even anybody from the Jacksonville community who can present their idea and business plan and things like that. And we'll be able to guide them with the panel of judges and everything like that. And finally, I wanted to thank the sponsors who sponsored for this event, and all the communities, all the associations who also spread the word. And special mention to Srinivas Ravi Garu, the youth committee chair. We have actually 13 youth committee members who showed interest to volunteer for this event, and coordinating with them, both Srinivas Ravi Garu and also Naveen Garu, to make this successful and make sure they did their own homework and research and asking the right questions and getting valuable information. With the interest that 13 people from the youth committee coming forward to volunteer, I know how much interest they have about becoming future creators and future entrepreneurs, and we are here to help as much as possible. And with that, I give it back to Pooja, who wanted to close this out.
Thank you, Uncle. My name is Pooja. Thank you to everyone who asked questions. Also, a big thank you to all of our panelists, sponsors, volunteers, and everyone that attended the event. The 2021st ever Taja Entrepreneurship Workshop greatly benefits middle and high school students by teaching them about entrepreneurship earlier in the process. When participating in this event, students learn about the importance of entrepreneurship and how it teaches you problem-solving, teamwork, leadership, and countless other life skills. By learning from our speakers today, it gave us a first-hand experience on what it is to be an entrepreneur. Thank you to everyone who attended. I'll be now handing it over to Naveen.
Thank you, Pooja. Very well done. So,
Naveen, can I say?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Can we say a few last comments as well, thanking everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank my wife, Seema, who has put up with me and allowed me to pursue my dream of being an entrepreneur. Like I said, I think it's not done. It's still ongoing. So she has to put up with me for some more time. So that's why I'm thanking her. And thanks to my kids for, like you said, I think it is a tough thing. Sometimes they know that we won't be able to do all the things that we want to do. And sometimes we bring the pressures of work home. I think that's one thing that I try to avoid, but there are always stresses. There, like I said, the lows are, horribly low. When it's a very low day, I just cannot stop myself from bringing the pressure back home. I think I try my best not to do it, but that's, thanks for the family to put up with me on those days. I'd like to thank Mr. Paparao for actually asking me to be on this. And I've been, I think those of you who know me, we've been in Jacksonville for a long time. I was part of the TAJA founding team. I was on the first executive committee of TAJA, as the treasurer for the organization. In all these years since we started TAJA, we have never had an event like this. I think I'm really, really, really excited for Mr. Paparao, or I don't know who the committee is that has thought about this idea of doing this. I think it's great to see the kids getting involved and doing an event like this, which is thinking outside the box. But that's what entrepreneurs are. They always think outside the box. So thanks, Mr. Paparao. Thank you, Naveen, for being an excellent MC, anchor for today's event. I think you have a great talent there. You're great at putting things together. Good job there. And thanks to the youth committee. I think the ones who actually done the introductions, asked the questions, very thoughtful questions. And I have to give it, I didn't say at the time, but some of those questions stumped me. I think those are hard questions. They're interesting questions. And lastly, thanks to all the audience who have put up with us and endured our blabber. Hopefully they got some good nuggets from there. But because I've been here for a long time, I would like to say this. A lot of people probably know me. If not, I think get my contact information. I will be more than happy to answer any questions or have a discussion, or if you want to brainstorm something, any ideas about entrepreneurship, I will be available to do that outside of this session. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharath Garu, once again for
your kind words. Okay, Raghuji, thank you so much for sending that link. So audience, go to www.wiredtoperform.com. You can create a free profile and know your entrepreneur profile. So please make sure you give it a shot. With that, thank you each and everyone, especially our panelists, to take their time off on a Saturday and giving all your inputs and feedback to this crowd. Definitely a webinar that resonates in our mind whenever we think about the entrepreneurship. And a special thanks to Parag Bhai from Deerwood Jewelers for trusting us and supporting us through the events, and all the audience and the youth committee and Srinivas Ravi Garu for encouraging the kids. With that, we are signing off. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you.